Hey, it's Harrison. Doom goes medieval in the newest entry in this long-running franchise. The question is, does it rip and tear or rust in pieces? Let's find out together as we chat about Doom: The Dark Ages. Doom: The Dark Ages is the third in the new trilogy of Doom games made by id Software, starting with 2016's Doom and Doom Eternal in 2018. The Doom series itself started in 1993 with this original work pioneering the core concepts seen in the modern trilogy as well as first-person shooters as a whole. Doom as a whole revolves around yourself as the Slayer, a force purely focused on devastating demons using whatever he can. This ethos has carried well through Doom 2016 and was purely exemplified in Doom Eternal, which saw incredible acclaim and set an entirely new bar for the series as a whole. I myself was incredibly excited for the Dark Ages. As a rule, I try to stay away from most pre-release material, but the whole vibe and feel I got from everything I saw was amazing. The Slayer with that sweet fur cape, shield in hand, all in medieval narrative? I'm in. This new Doom trilogy can be put into three words: rip and tear. High-octane action with heavy metal, guts, and bullet shells flying leads to pure exhilaration. This was brought to its truest form in Doom Eternal, which was all about using every tool at your disposal. Chainsaw to heal, fire to drop armor, and switching between weapons to work within the strict ammunition limits. The Dark Ages carries this core ideal all throughout its runtime, but takes a slightly different approach, which I believe brings a noticeable playstyle and pace change to the game that nicely differentiates it from its predecessors. Do you ever wish they made a Captain America movie where he strapped the chainsaw around his shield and threw it right into Satan's face? Me too. Luckily, the Dark Ages has you sorted with its defining feature: the shield. The shield adds a ton of new game mechanics that totally change the pace and feel of the general gameplay both in and out of combat. This makes the overall pace feel much more stand and fight than rip and tear. My personal favorite way to use it, or the most impactful way, is to throw it straight through weak enemies like a knife through warm butter. If thrown at larger demons, it'll put them into a stun lock, allowing you to lay on damage while they're sawed in two. In addition to throwing, you can also shield bash, which allows you to quickly close the distance with faraway enemies, either splashing the fodder enemies into goo with extra bits, or getting face to face with the game's more tanky baddies. Biggest way the shield changes the core gameplay is through its parry system. Most attacks can be blocked, but special attacks colored in green can be parried. A correctly timed parry will either throw a projectile back at the enemy or stun a melee combatant for a short moment. I am truly awful when it comes to parrying. In most other games, I'm more of a dodge and weave type of player, but in this system in place that they have here, it's easy enough to get a hang of, and most important is it's so important and key to the rhythm of the game that it's really comply or die here. So once you get into the rhythm of throwing it, switching between throwing, bashing, and parrying, everything feels really good. And I think that this all leads to a really good switch up from the usual pace and the usual setup that the series has. Of course, the shield is defense and offense, but what about that pure Doom aggression? Guns, guns, and more guns. Well, the Dark Ages certainly has those too, and in spades. Weapons are broken into ammunition type categories. For shells, we have the combat shotgun and the super shotgun. For rail spike, which would be our machine gun, we have shredder and impaler. For the plasma, we have the accelerator and the cycler. For the skull crusher, which I'm sure you've seen in a lot of the promo material, where they have a skull and it gets crushed up and pushed out the end of the gun, we have the pulverizer and the ravager. For the launcher, we have the grenade launcher and a rocket launcher. And for special items, we have the reaver chain shot and the crossbow. Each of these weapons has their own specific role in combat and can be further enhanced using resources found around the game world. While there are 2 weapons per category, you'll find that every weapon is well distinguished from its counterpart. For example, the combat shotgun, when upgraded, lights enemies on fire, causing them to drop ammo, which thereby improves your survivability. The super shotgun, however, is all about damage, with upgrades improving its slow reload time and the amount of damage it does to armored enemies. So all these weapons have individual roles that they fill inside a combat, and understanding what they do and the best time to use them is so critical to success in the Dark Ages. And again, kind of like with the shield, when you get into that flow state of switching from weapon to weapon, throwing your shield, parrying, and doing all these, it feels so good. And of course, as you go through the upgrade tree, all of these kind of pile in together. So for example, with the Reaver chain shot, With that one, when you power it up all the way, you press and hold the button, you let it charge up, and then you let go, it'll do extra damage. And with that weapon, the idea is that you're taking armor off of an enemy and removing it so that your other weapons can then go in and do other damage. With the Reaver Chain Shot, if you get it and you parry, it'll instantly charge it up, which allows you to get that much faster in combat and work that much more effectively. So there are lots of little synergies in this game between each weapon. The flow of the gameplay is neck and neck with the sound and feel of these weapons. Every weapon has been modeled and animated so well that they feel incredibly heavy, loud, and painful. In addition to the great weapon design, the sound design for the guns and the game as a whole is crunchy and grotesque in a way that really sells the whole aesthetic. Speaking of, the overall art design and aesthetic of this game is incredibly cohesive with the past games while also doing its own thing to stand alone. You can definitely see the design DNA of the previous games woven in here, but the medieval coat of paint differentiates this game nicely from what came before. When we talk about movement, the movement in Doom the Dark Ages is solid and iterates well on Doom Eternal. Movement is still fast, but also feels weighty. For example, when you jump off a ledge, no matter how tall, you'll hit the ground with a large boom like a Titanfall. This quick movement pairs well with large maps in play. While not being open world or open region, what I would call these open area maps provide a nice place to play around in. Some took me about 2 hours to get through, for example. These areas include a large array of different marked locations and activities, such as high concentrations of demons, puzzles, collectibles, and secret areas. However, none of these puzzles, collectible areas, or secret areas were really that too hard to find, as the in-game map will show you their location provided that you get close enough, and will call out the total number of items to collect per stage. So if you kind of feel like you're getting towards the end and you notice that you're missing a couple items, it's easy enough to go back, and more than likely the game has noted it down for you. So the secret areas really don't feel that special or that secret. While the general locations for these games are varied within itself, they aren't really all that different from previous Doom games. However, as we've talked about, the medieval vibe really does help to make all of this feel that little bit more fresh. In order to traverse the map effectively and to find some of these secrets, you'll have to use your shield. The shield throw can either stick into blue power nodes to open doors and lift platforms, for example, or can stick into these green glowing things and then pull you along to that location. However, this effect never fails to look and feel so incredibly jank that I'm shocked they left it in like that. While it's not a big deal, it always takes me out of the experience. Aside from your typical Doom FPS gameplay, you'll also box hand-to-hand with skyscraper-sized monsters in a giant mech and take to the skies on a laser-winged dragon. As much of a spectacle as these are, I really didn't get much from them at all. They really just feel like a button mash fest in a game where there really is a complexity in the regular gameplay. While these levels do nicely break up the gameplay, I really think they could have done a lot more here. An example I thought of is using the Mecha Dragon as a form of travel between regions or to access otherwise inaccessible regions within the level would have been really cool. So something kind of like the ship that you have in God of War 2018, I believe. That would have been a lot better, and I think it would have made them feel a little bit more in the story. Kind of right now, it just feels like it's kind of a break, and you're waiting to get back to the regular Doom gameplay. The difficulty in this game is something that a lot of people have talked about, and that's because it's highly modular. When you go through the settings, there are a ton of settings that allow you to make it slower, faster, change the enemy aggression, all of these different things. I'm just playing on the basic Ultra Nightmare or Ultra Nightmare without any changes, and I found that to be a good challenge, at least for my level. Something I think we talk about this flow of gameplay, throwing shields, switching weapons, doing all these different things. I think in order to really understand these core gameplay ideals and be able to really engage with the game, I think it's really important for you to play on a difficulty that's a little bit more difficult than what you're used to, and that forces you to really use all of these resources at your disposal. So for anybody watching, if you find the game easy, the nice thing is it is highly modular, and I would increase it to the point where you find it to be that little bit of a challenge. Now, the story. Doom the Dark Ages is actually a prequel taking place in an indeterminate but really, really long time of period before Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. It's also maybe kind of like a timeline hopping follow-up to Doom 64. Honestly, I don't know, and having played Doom 2016 and Eternal when they dropped, I couldn't really tell you what they're about, aside from the fact that demons are alive out there, and your mission is to make them dead. In Doom the Dark Ages, the Doom Guy, or the Slayer as they call him in-game, has been captured and made to be a leashed, mind-controlled weapon at the command of the Makers. These alien beings have enlisted the Slayer to the Sentinels, a group of humans who siphon demon energy from hell. Demons don't like that, so they come to Earth. Demons alive, need them dead. Got it? The plot does a good enough job bringing you from set piece to set piece in a way that makes sense at flow, but really, that's all there is to the story here. I'm about 75% through. I don't see a Nolan twist coming, but I'll let you know if it changes. But so far, I think that the story really serves to bring you from location to location and give you that kind of wrapper to put everything into. Doom, as I said many times, is all about demons, gore, and putting those two together as much as possible. Before you even pull the trigger, the demons, both small and large, are as grotesque as you can imagine. When it comes to gameplay, the small fodder enemies can attack with melee or with a few range attacks, and they all go down with a quick shield swing or a couple bullets. The larger enemies, however, are incredibly well varied and work to keep you on your toes with their different fight patterns. When it comes to sound, score, and music, I know that everybody loves Mick Gordon's previous Doom soundtracks. And while there's no argument that he made some amazing compositions, I'm just not much of a rock guy, and rock is rock to me. So the score here in the Dark Ages keeps momentum rolling. It's a certified adrenaline producer, and I think it does exactly what it needs to do, so the music here is good. I talked about the weapons, how they really feel powerful, heavy, and weighty, and I think that really transfers through the whole game, where you just feel that everything is crunchy, loud, and scary, ready to kill you or it. As we move to wrap things up, we'll talk a little bit about performance. Of course, as you can see throughout all this gameplay, this game looks absolutely fantastic, but that comes at a cost. Doom the Dark Ages has ray tracing capable cards as a default requirement, which will lock a ton of people out of playing. I'm going to pop my specs on screen here. I'm running the game on high 2K at around 90 to 100 FPS, and I think this runs really well. I'm totally happy with it. I can appreciate that many can't afford a rig of the spec that I have, and then also that many people with rigs like my own have experienced lots of crashes and stuttering. So my experience has not been that, but you very well may have that experience. As far as bugs go, I've had a couple very, very small ones. The first one is that sometimes the map menu wouldn't quite work correctly, but opening and closing it seemed to fix it. And then I've also had some issues when it comes to the shield not blocking properly. This very well could be that I'm just bad at the game. Entirely possible. But sometimes I was holding down that button and I couldn't get it. It could be to do with multiple inputs at the same time, but it definitely led to some frustrating failures at certain points. The game also had some difficulties with streaming and recording, but I was able to work around those. Just something to note for those of you who do that. Now let's get to our final verdict. Is it fun? Yes, definitely. I've had a ton of fun with this game so far. I'm really looking forward to finishing it. I don't think it's one that I would come back around to, at least not for a while. And when I say that, we kind of get to our next one. Do you buy? Do you wait for a scale? Do you skip it? Of course, this one's on Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, it is a no-brainer. I dropped Oblivion to play this, and I'm glad that I did that. So having Game Pass, it is not a question. I would probably buy this on a sale with how expensive games are and how expensive this game is. I probably wouldn't buy it at full price. So Game Pass or sale for this one. But with all that being said, I would give the Doom Dark Ages probably about an 8 out of 10 right now. I've been really enjoying it. Put down in the comments what you guys thought. Thanks for watching. It's Harrison. Chat next time. See you soon.